fertility is a race against time.
Sometimes it's luck, right?
Yeah,
but
correct.
if memang you nak try at a later age, you have to get yourself assisted.
Talking about costs, I'm reminded with PCOS.
A lot of people were vying for that DAP were able to, hold up the torch.
Do you think that DAP has enough space to publicly express?
We are very used to be opposition. There's nothing wrong with us going back to being opposition.
Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Beyond the Headlines, the go-to space for the top stories that made the headlines and more. I'm Amalina Kamal.
And I'm Juliana Jalaluddin. So Malaysia is changing, right? The way we live, work, build families today looks very different, obviously, than a generation ago. And that's showing up on our population. But are you aware that Malaysia's fertility rate has fallen below the replacement level, meaning fewer children are being born compared to previous generations? You might be aware of this, but do you know how serious this is?
I believe the statistics reflect I suppose real life challenges, right? Among them, couples delaying parenthood, changing lifestyles, and among the factors, of course, is financial pressures, including fertility challenges that many people may not openly discuss even in 2026. Because when we talk about fertility, right, it's not just a taboo topic for couples in general, but it's a taboo topic among the general populace who are not necessarily married. And women are often the center of that particular argument, whereby they are the first to receive questions of like, when are you guys going to have children? Don't wait too long, because you know why? Whether you akan tak subur. Eventually.
My favorite comment is the expiry date of our eggs.
Because of the biology clock that we are
it's one of the
born
factors,
with.
but that's not the main factor.
But fertility alone is actually not just, a one-person responsibility, right, Julia? It takes actually two people to make a baby, obviously, scientifically speaking as well. Both sides of the equation matter.
But here's something we don't talk about enough. Male infertility, right? Okay. For years, the spotlight, like you said, has been on women, but medical experts say male factors contribute to about half of all infertility cases. So despite that, many men still hesitate to get tested because of stigma, of course, and we can't help that. Embarrassment or the misconception that infertility is only a woman's issue. So please bear in mind that raising awareness isn't about assigning blame, right? It's not about that at all. It's about recognizing that fertility is a shared responsibility between both genders, between partners. And both partners, they should be able to have the conversation from the very beginning in a healthy manner.
That's true. It's never about who's alpha, who's beta. If you don't have or you cannot produce babies, then it makes you less of a man or sorts, right?
So this is a very interesting topic. It's a taboo topic, but we need to keep on raising the awareness. So we have fertility specialist here, Dr. Natasha Aimamaknoor. Thank you, doctor, for being here. This is going to be a very interesting conversation. So
all women here on set, right? Yeah.
We can't wait to delve into the topic. So, Doc, National Population and Family Development Board, LPPKN. They said that Malaysia's fertility rate has fallen below replacement level, but while more couples are delaying parenthood, so from a medical perspective, what do you think are the key factors actually driving this trend?
Okay, so based on my experience, treating a lot of couples over the past few years, I think it can be divided into socio-economic reasons and biological reasons. Like you quite, rightly say that people are delaying, the couples are delaying, marriage, delaying parenthood. I think partly due to the reasons, like we are changing, our society is changing. Women are mostly expected to, work. We are career-driven. We've given the opportunity, which is a good thing, career opportunity, and to go up the ladder of your career. But that also sometimes, you be in a place where you have to probably decide between career and child. Right, and it's actually quite difficult to juggle as a modern woman, right? Where should I juggle? It's actually quite difficult with less, support in terms of childcare. So that's one of the reasons in delaying. I think in terms of securing employment, at the moment, right? Securing, employment which is probably going to be long-lasting, because majority is probably going to be, you're hoping for jobs, right? Especially in the earlier part of the career, so you're not secure in terms of finance and in terms of rising health and also,
Lifestyle costs.
Lifestyle costs.
But
So-
doctor, when a person decides, or maybe do not decide, or later in life they decide to have a baby, when you delay parenthood itself, does it effectively say that your chances of having a baby memang dah minimal?
Depends how long you're delaying and how old are you at that time. We cannot deny that, fertility is a race against time, right? And we have biological clock, which despite whatever medical advances like egg freezing, we still unable to overcome that age factor plays an important role in actually determining your fertility rate and also your success rate of any fertility treatment that you do.
But there are cases where people can still conceive,
absolutely.
bear a child healthily. But the thing is, the serious factors that you need to consider is the older you are in conceiving a baby, you need to take care of a lot of healthy lifestyle changes, not just the diet, not just the drink. Sometimes, like for those who are smoking, they need to completely stop, and it will take a few months for those to get out of that, to get out of your system. And then managing stress, managing sleep, right? The environment where you're exposed to. It's a lot of factors to take into account the more older you are to try to conceive.
Yeah,
right?
I've heard cases of even individuals having to completely quit their jobs. It's counterproductive because you you are career minded, you get the job that you wanted, but then you decide to have a baby. But the stress level at the workplace, or at least not necessarily at the workplace, but the job itself, right? The work-life balance does not translate at home. So they completely quit their job just to focus on having a child. So these are real realities, right, Doctor?
Yeah.
And in that particular context, right, the end goal when they eventually have a baby, macam among your observations, is that something that is worth sacrifice then?
I think this is depending on the individual. You will come to a decision in terms of, drawing a line basically, or how to balance between your career and childhood, like, childcare, like for myself as well. If I'm an obstetrician and I'm a gynecology, so I feel blessed that I am given the opportunity. Obstetrics is, round the clock. So I have to make that decision in terms of, and depending on my background, like would I want to continue that, or would I then choose more 9-to-5 sort of job that is much more, obviously in your earlier beginning of your careers, like you probably go for more, obstetrics and gynecology. And I think this is faced by all the women out there in terms of, obviously you want to go up the ladder and it becomes a challenge. But saying that, I think I always tell my patients, like, you need to love yourself.
Yeah.
You need to take care of self. You need to have a bit of balance that you go, like, you need to draw the line. Look, is this worth in terms of sacrificing your health, right? So how do you have the most balanced lifestyle and still, despite that, being able to achieve what you want career-wise? So lifestyle factors is important.
Very important.
Sleeping late, obviously scrolling and things. So you're stressed, you're scrolling.
Sekarang tengah World Cup season, susah lah.
So scrolling, okay, but they say looking at beautiful things, you like calm yourself, right? So I think thinking in terms of taking care of your health, eating. So usually I say, look, make sure you arrange your time. I know it's super busy. Can you just make sure, try as best as possible, if you can, eat healthily, right? Don't tapao and then, don't eat late. Try to sleep when you're not, busy. Try to have enough sleep. And sleeping 12 to 8 is not the same as sleeping 10 to 6. Right?
So in the beginning, we were talking about, highlighted about the male infertility. Have you seen more male coming forward to get them assessed for their fertility?
Right. I think we have been partly successful in terms of running a campaign, for male infertility, to make it less stigmatizing for the male to approach. I've had males coming in first before, to check their sperm.
Oh,
yeah,
that's good.
alone.
Oh,
right.
that's good.
Yeah, so
Okay.
they'll be like, I just want to check. And I'll go like, yeah, okay. So it's fine. So they'll be, okay, I'm relieved. So then they'll go down with their partner to actually have the full, checkup, fertility checkup.
Right.
So that's actually, not uncommon. And patients do come together most of the time. And actually, the way we set up our package, it's a fertility assessment package. Sperm test always gets done within the first two, follow-ups, checkups.
So most of the time, these men yang come forward too, in what age group are they actually? Majority
Ranges
of them.
between 20s to 30s.
Oh, as young as 20,
Yeah,
that's really
yeah.
good.
Some of
Yeah.
them, are they even like macam fully married? Are they like
Yeah,
some?
they are probably married.
Are they single though?
Single, yes.
Okay, okay.
Yes, we do
okay.
have patients checking pre-marital, right? They just want to go, I want to check, right? I say, yeah, why not? Let's have a look.
Good.
Owning up lah, basically,
Owning
up,
to
yeah,
your
exactly.
reproductive health, right?
So
Because that's something.
sometimes, sometimes the female come, I'll sort of persuade, do you have a partner? Say, yeah, we're going to get married next year. Say, why don't he come and have a check? So that when you're married, you're good to go.
Yep.
Like, you know that there's no major issues,
Yeah.
that you're happy to start immediately if you want.
That's a good thing because
Yeah.
if you're really serious about getting into marriage and you are really serious about having a child together, so you should be doing this together. And before anything else happen, you know what to do. There's a plan A and there's a plan B.
Yeah, exactly.
So not at the last minute, tiba nak conceive, you'll be like, oh, this is like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? And then you kind of
Yeah.
like, that will be one of the risk factors of
Yeah.
a broken marriage.
I think because thing is, it's interesting that you actually highlighted that people, or at least couples, or to the extent that individuals do actually come forward and they want to know their own health, right?
Yeah.
Levels basically. But it's very damning to see even the rate itself with this sort of awareness, it's declining. It's to the point like it's hard to replace. We actually need to produce more population-wise, right?
Yep.
Perhaps before we go into the next set of discussion, what are the gaps still that needs to be addressed?
Okay, still we need obviously to create awareness. Gaps are actually, I think, in terms of cost, barriers to cost awareness. They're busy, super busy. That's another thing. Like it's just career, they're really busy. Gaps in terms of for the government, in terms of doing a policy that actually meets the needs. So in order for that, I applaud that the recent, from
BUAI program, yes.
So they are going to create a national registry. So we need to know what are we actually facing, why are we facing, to what extent, and what treatment we can, or policy that we can do, and then reassess whether that policy or that intervention is actually meeting the needs that we need.
For our audience understanding, BUAI, BUAI, is actually a program under LPPKN for those young have been trying to get babies. So they will provide subsidy for this fertility program. Maybe you can Google it and find out more information about that.
Yeah. Actually, in the past, before BUAI is also introduced, actually, Dato' Sri Nancy Shukri did say the government has assisted couples, more than 6,500 of them at least. That comes in the set, obviously, couples that actually have successful pregnancies,
Right.
and they want to scale it up further, right?
Yeah.
But to scale it up further, you mentioned about cost, right? What's the actual cost for an IVF?
Maybe
at
a
least?
range though.
Okay, so I think when we're looking at trying to set up a policy, like even if I work from the private sector, I mean I've worked in the government sector first. We need to look at cost effectiveness, right? So when they roll out the BUAI, they are actually intending to treat IUI. So IUI is intrauterine insemination. So where we wash sperm, get the fastest moving sperm, place it inside the uterus. Now, what is the expected pregnancy rate usually? So it's about 10 to 15% per cycle. Not great, right? So basically we need to, but it's a good start. So because that's why we have the, say start early, better. It's better, right? So lebih awal lebih baik. Right, so that's their team.
All right, IUI, but is it part of IVF?
No.
Oh, it's separate then.
IUI, if you were to look at the stage of fertility treatment, first would be like obviously lifestyle changes. Then we start off with simple things like fertility tablets. And then the next one would be IUI. The top tier would be IVF. So between the IUI and IVF, there's a big gap. If you see the cost in terms of, success rate, right?
Okay, talking about costs, I'm reminded with PCOS. But
All right.
before we go into PCOS, I have another question about male infertility.
Yeah.
So for a situation where a male patient come in and it's proven by result that dia memang ada infertility, what are the, I'm sure the audience I would want to know how the treatment is going to be to get the male back on track.
Okay, so when we assess patients, obviously it's not just male. From my experience, majority is both. right? Move a little bit here, a little bit there. So for male, depends on, again, back to lifestyle. I would probably say there's a lot of lifestyle issues at the moment. We have a obesity epidemic at the moment, which actually affects both sides. For male, I think it's also being poor lifestyle choices. Maybe perhaps due to being stressed, right? Being stressed. So you're like eating not well. So obesity comes into the place, smoking, not sleeping well. So all of this. So depends on the severity of the male infertility or subfertility, then and also the couple's demographic, like how old is the wife, does she have any problems, how long have they been trying, how bad is the male severity, then only we'll be able to, and obviously costs, how much are they being able to afford, right? So we go like, okay, based on that, we have a discussion. I advise medically, this would be the best treatment, right?
Okay.
Obviously, the younger they are, the less, they've been trying, the length of duration they've been trying, you can try simple things like IUI. But if it's the wife is also older, maybe 35 and above, they've been trying for more than 5 years, 10 years, and even though the male sperm is just not too bad, we're already moving them quite quickly from IUI to IVF to achieve the cost effectiveness of our fertility treatment and not to be able, they're not so long on the duration. In terms of, when we go fertility treatment, that's not only cost issue, there's emotional issues that we don't want to drag things too long because they probably fall off the treatment totally, just being emotionally stressed out by the journey itself.
actual
Because it can be quite a
treatment.
taxing process to get your lifestyle sorted.
It is.
And the moment for you to get your lifestyle sorted, it involves discipline.
Yeah,
and for
correct.
someone to someone to be on discipline, it's quite hard.
Yep, commitment.
Especially
Your
commitment,
commitment,
exactly.
work
So once
commitment,
that's
time
sorted,
commitment.
so let's katakanlah, optimistically speaking, they've sorted their lifestyle, everything's good, like 2-3 months down the road, and then after that, there will be an advisable proper
Yeah, for sure.
prescription medication to further boost or whatever lah.
So first time we go like, okay, assess lifestyle factor, optimize everything, weight, supplement, lifestyle, smoking, sort it out, check the results, how bad is it? Okay, and then we go like, for this level of severity, I think IUI suits you, or this one you say forget about it, I'm going to give you treatment, we are moving towards IVF.
Straight away
Right,
lah.
straight away.
Sorry to still go back to the dollars and cents, right?
Yeah.
But the total cost,
Yeah,
because
okay.
I mean, honestly, like I would eventually want a
Yeah.
baby
Obviously,
one
it's
day.
kaching anyway.
Everything
Yeah,
is
yeah,
money.
yeah.
Yeah, everything's
susah lah.
money. I mean, when you have a
Okay.
child also, that's another
Yeah, exactly.
money juga.
Yeah.
But nak cuba baby, because a lot of people, they don't necessarily understand this. If you're already trying for a child later in your age, you should already get yourself assisted. You can't, I mean, there's no such, I mean, I don't know lah, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no such thing as natural. Kalau ada pun, itu rezeki lah in that sense. Sometimes it's luck, right?
Yeah,
But
correct.
if memang you nak try at a later age, you have to get yourself assisted, meaning go to the clinics.
Yep. Yep.
So cost-wise,
Okay.
what are we looking at here?
So, like, say, where you go, like, is it a government or is it going to be private? Always for private because, it's convenience. You want to have Saturdays, you want to have your time. You're looking at, for IUI, maybe 2,000 to 3,000 ringgit
Per one-off.
per cycle.
Per cycle usually comes with...
Depends on what medication. So every time when we treat, we start on the second day of the period.
Okay.
Then we give hormone treatments and then we do a procedure. So all in with scan, consultation, medication. For IUI, we use minimal medication because we really don't want them to have multiple pregnancies.
Oh, sebab terlebih, macam terlebih
Yeah.
pula.
Yeah.
But there have been cases, right? People dapat kembar.
I mean, they
Okay,
were
okay,
saying
okay.
kembar 2, kembar 3. To be honest, for a modern IVF doctor, I'd be too embarrassed to say I got triplets for
Oh,
patients.
wow.
I'll be
Okay.
embarrassed. It's like one at a time, one healthy single pregnancy. I'll be
okay.
like, I won't go like, oh, I got triplets. I'll be like, I've got triplets. Oh my God, how
I
did that
see.
happen?
So that's- I
Twins,
see.
you probably go,
So even
okay.
if that person, either of them has no twin genetics in their family,
They can.
that can
Yes,
still happen.
because especially for IUI, we're stimulating. The problem with that, we can't control how many follicles, so we tend to give a bit lower dosage, adjust to the patient's age, how many, how she will respond,
Right.
So be like, we always go like, look, I think that's more 2 follicles. You're okay to have twins? The husband will always say, yes, we're okay to have
They're
twins.
always happy
Husband,
with twins.
obviously.
I'll go like, that's great. Just make sure you provide
Enough,
support
right.
and
Yeah.
financially.
Sometimes, I mean, happiness, right? That's
Yeah.
something very subjective, right? But yeah, of course, I do understand because you want to also maintain and manage the expectations later on once you've had that baby.
Yeah. There's
Doc,
a life beyond having those babies.
Yes,
Right?
but
Yeah.
in let's say if a person is lost all their means already because they've been trying, like you said, like 5-10 years, still tak dapat, even through IVF also still tak dapat. Are there other avenues that they can try apart from IUI or the actual treatment itself? Maybe a more holistic aspect. Is there a trend that you see rising
I think
before they come
now-
back to the actual treatments?
Yeah, I think if they're already trying IVF with multiple failures, we will have to look, because that's one of the things that our clinics actually have a lot in terms of addressing couples with multiple failures of IVF. So we then go through optimizing, right, in terms of is it the lifestyle back again, changing a little bit of the regime of the IVF treatment, and then obviously we need to maintain a very good lab in order to get your success rate. So I think worst case scenario, I think for Muslim couples, let's say if they have a zoospermia, okay? A zoospermia means they have no sperm inside when they produce the, sperm specimen, nothing inside. So there are two things. Alhamdulillah, a big majority of them, they only be able to retrieve the sperm by a surgical procedure directly on the testis.
Wow.
Okay, but once we get the sperm, provided the wife is also not too bad, success rate is pretty good, right? So in scenarios that we're still unable to retrieve the sperm despite doing a surgical procedure, there will be a small percentage, then you will be looking at adoption.
Okay.
Now, for non-Muslims, we do have still in Malaysia a donor program, right? So donor egg, donor sperm, obviously surrogacy is not allowed in Malaysia, right? So, but the donor program as it is, it's still there.
Okay.
Right? So
It's
obviously
available.
we are catering for Muslims and non-Muslim, which is, I think, fair enough,
Right.
right? Yeah.
But do you think that with this fertility treatment and everything, do you think it's enough to match the country's reproductive health landscape though?
Yeah, the ecosystem itself.
Okay, so we need to then address why do we want this fertility rate to go up? I think because it's
Aging.
I think we're trying to replace
gonna
our
run the country?
population. Yeah, we're trying to replace the population. But
Right.
this subfertility is probably a small contribution to actually why people are not getting pregnant, right? It's just there's a big whole, other factors like we mentioned
earlier
first.
one you mentioned,
Correct. So it's
yes.
social factor. People, they probably can get pregnant.
They just don't
They
want to.
just don't want to get pregnant because don't want to. They don't think they can, afford to get pregnant.
The pregnancy itself
Right.
is a cost.
Yeah.
Raising the kids is a cost.
Yeah.
Until ensuring that they are able to succeed in later life, right? Higher education, graduate,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
the full cycle. That's
like
one
governments
aspect. Yeah.
are so desperate sometimes outside, they are actually giving incentive. If you deliver babies, we're going to give
Yes.
all sorts of things, to that
Yeah,
extent.
but
I
the thing
think,
is, it's not about the incentive
Yeah.
of even if they it's not about the incentive of bearing a child. It comes down to, for example, if I get pregnant and then I have to think about the plan for my child for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Another major factor for me personally that I fear of is the societal expectation of raising a child and the risk that comes with it. It's not just safety, getting bullied in school. That's one thing. That is now a very pertinent
Yeah.
case
Yeah.
in Malaysia
Yeah.
nowadays
Yeah.
with so many
Yeah.
bullying and mental cases and whatever. But it's also about what are they being exposed to in this
Day and age.
day and age, the digital era and everything. So that's a lot of factor that's like
True.
you need to consider how you protect them. Even if it's not protecting them, it's about how do you teach your child to navigate this ever evolving, complicated,
World.
messy world.
Yeah.
In the next 20 years, it's going to be a lot different than from where we are sitting
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, if we were to map it out that way, it does look scary, right? And to some extent, yes, that's why people decided not to have children altogether because there's a lot of things to think
Anxiety,
about.
ya terus.
Anxiety. But then, as the saying goes, right? When you have a child, as much as I pain myself for saying this, anak itu adalah rezeki,
Betul.
and nothing is foolproof. It's like there's no formula to actually say that you can. Okay, this is the right kind of pregnancy. This is the right kind of way of raising a child.
False hope of thinking entirely that having a child is rezeki entirely pun, we can't just rely on that. Memang betul tu rezeki. I mean, by religion, when we believe in that, it is rezeki. But it's not necessarily saying that you leave it out entirely
Yeah.
to God.
Hope
You still
and
have to
luck.
provide them with some sort of support.
Yeah.
That support is very, very, very important.
That's the policy aspect
Yeah.
that we need to talk about.
Yeah,
lah.
exactly.
Doc, another thing that I want to highlight, because we were talking about people who want to get pregnant. or who have decided not to get pregnant because, what are my chances? But what about those who have not thought about it yet in the early days, young days, and then because reproductive health, it's for everybody. Right? As for women in particular, there's this rising case of people being diagnosed with PCOS. And a lot of people don't even realize that they have that until they want to get pregnant. Can someone with PCOS eventually have children later on in life?
Another interesting aspect, I think now PCOS has been renamed to PMOS.
Oh yes,
Right?
it's been renamed
So,
to.
I mean, it's actually, we know it's just a name. I would say it's just a misnomer where they say polycystic, lots of cysts. It's now PMOS, polymetabolic ovarian syndrome. So it actually is the whole body. It's actually centralized on metabolic disturbance, hormone imbalance. But with SOC media, so there's been an increase in awareness. So people go like, oh, do I have PCOS or PMOS? So I actually have patients coming to drop by. I just want to check whether I have PCOS. So I think in terms of, I think we live in an age where SOC media plays an important role in awareness. So I think that's why we can see lots of, probably doctors are now on SOC media to advocate, to disseminate information for the public, especially for the younger generations. And for PCOS or PMOS, actually I usually tell patients, look, actually PMOS is a lifestyle intervention majority of the time, and you probably have the best prognosis among of all other diagnoses.
Really?
Meaning if we were to change your lifestyle, and in terms of reducing weight, taking care of your health, and just giving appropriate fertility treatment depending on background, majority will get pregnant if they come early. So I've got you need borderline PCOS lah, and they'll be like, they're like late 20s. You'll be like, doctor, I married like super like stressed out. I'll be like, how old are you? Like less than 30. How long you been married? 1 to 2 years. I say, okay, let's check. 1 month, next month, 3 months, I can see ovulation, you should get pregnant.
If your period's coming in very rarely, memang confirm itu PMOS, or will there be another
So
factor?
that's part of the assessment that we do. We make sure that we rule out other issues, because sometimes the irregular period, it could be PCOS, or it could be due to thyroid issues, it could be to hormone issues, or actually they are premature ovarian failure.
Premature ovarian
Yeah,
failure?
they're like having some genetic issues.
Okay.
They are losing their eggs. They are actually like young, but they're actually going into menopause quite earlier due to probably a lots of immune factors. So we do have that now, a problem of quality, younger women having less quality and egg numbers. So we are now going into the rejuvenation age pula.
Kejap, before that, what are some of the telltale signs to know that your reproductive health needs to be attended to?
To be attended to. Okay, if you're married, you're less than 35, you are not on contraception after 1 year. Okay, if you are more than 35, after 6 months, go ahead. You can see, obviously, this is not a black and white rule. You can see whenever. You can see even before, marriage. Or you do know that you have PCOS because you've been having irregular period. Irregular period means not on the dot every month. Is at least, once in a month, you should have a period. So cycles between day 1 to another day 1, 28, 30 days, that's usual. Okay, but if you're having really like once in 2 months, you're having a bit irregular.
What about it's like getting a personal consultation. But anyway, I'm sure a lot of people would realize
as well.
No, because what about your period is actually quite regular, but the period of the period though is shorter.
Oh, shorter. Okay, yep. Again, we need to see. Sometimes it's just a bit of imbalance in hormone. Usually patient go like, I've noticed that my period is shorter and lesser. So I think it indicates in terms of hormone issues. So again, back to the lifestyle, issues, making sure there's no thyroid issues, on any hormone issues. Check your lining when you are, fertile, right? See the lining if it's good. Are you ovulating? How many number of eggs you have? All those things. Ultimately, we want to know, are you going to be pregnant or not? So after checking for all these, optimizing, one of the delays, I see that I have to optimize in terms of weight. So I do emphasize on, of all this, rising. I say, but can we make sure that those who are trying are at their most optimal stage. So spend a bit more on, making them healthier. So because ultimately they'll go into government hospitals. If they're unhealthy, we're going to have another issue with high risk.
Added health complications.
Correct.
Right. So talking about losing weight, this is not just about cutting down portion of what you eat, but when it comes to dieting, okay, this goes. My question goes on both male infertility and the PMOS situation. So when we talk about losing weight, eating healthily, it's not just about reducing portion or intermittent fasting and stuff like that, but there are specific type of dieting to help a person with PMOS and a person with male infertility, right?
Yeah, can. So depending on what we are looking at, so let's say PMOS, right? So I usually say in general, I think we're blessed because we've got so much nice, yummy foods, right? And we can get it 24/7. Like,
Greasy ones, they're always very good.
So you just
Right.
have to be
Yeah.
blessed. I think it's going to be a combination because I'll go exercise. No, I think it's going to be your food.
Right.
Portion, like you said, portion, what we're eating, you can eat, but I think, and the way sequence of eating, because we don't want to have the spikes of
Sequence
the sugar.
of eating, nak tergelak sekejap.
So,
Susah
sequence,
Get
you'll be like,
lapar.
okay, have your protein, because every time when you have to be balanced. Okay, you need your fibers, your fruits and vegetables, you need your proteins, okay, and you need to have your carbo. Yes, you can't live without rice. I'm okay for it, just the portion. So dia kena side player, bukan the middle highlight, sitting in the smack in the middle of
There
the
you
plate,
go.
right? So you have to be side, and you got your fruits and vegetables. Make it colorful, make it beautiful. Yeah, we're in the Instagram world. It's supposed to be like that.
Right.
Okay, so even if you see dietitian, so what you're eating, your portion, right, and the way we cook it. So grilling, steaming is better than obviously deep frying. Okay, so and also again timing of eating. So we don't be eating too late. Right, when you have your breakfast, you can have coffee, but not too early in the morning. And sugar is our, so sweet. Right, I think the first thing you want to cut off, if you like all the other things, just water, plain water.
Boleh.
You will get used to it. Yeah, you
Kurangkan
will.
minuman manis.
But sugar banyak. If you can cut off, and
yeah.
ultimately, if I see all this guru on health, they'll be like intermittent fasting. I'm like, yeah, we all know
Too many interventions
the most thing is the secret to losing weight is not eating. Kalau for us, I think we should be blessed. We are already being trained to fast, right? And it's dry fasting. So they go intermittent. What is this ridiculousness?
Feel
You Muslim,
alien,
right?
yeah.
You dry fasting.
Yeah.
That's the best. So you do that. I guarantee you should lose healthily.
Thank you so much, Dr. Natasha, for your insights. I mean, we want to talk about fertility, but at the same time, you cannot run away from the lifestyle habits
No,
too, right?
can't.
And both divides, right? Women and men, right? Because for the women aspect, there are other reproductive issues that we actually need to look into as well before we want to also get pregnant. But of course, never lose hope. There are always assistance. It's just a matter of whether or not we are capable atau we're in the position to, reach out. Right? And it's nice to know that the government is also looking into having to extend this particular chance for couples who are actually trying.
And it's a good thing that Buai is expanding their program for male infertility too. So it goes both ways.
Betul.
So I mean, that's one of the things that policymakers are trying to help, people to conceive. So
with the hope that it's not just about having to, replenish the population sahaja lah,
Replenish the
right?
population.
For
Taxpayers.
longevity. Yeah, betul. Maybe one last line from you in terms of hopes and wishes, especially when it comes to bettering the ecosystem for fertility care here.
Right. I would applaud the government incentives. I think they've done several very good incentives, but at the end of the day, we need to know that it's probably outside of health policy. Like we need to assure that the young generation that you have, be able to provide with, employment, secure good employment, the health costs, the lifestyle costs. Right. And also after that, also in terms of career, like how are they going to do childcare? Right, and would the woman lose out in terms of going up the ladder if they took maternity leave, flexibility? I think this needs to look into it carefully, and also obviously childcare, right? Is sort of expands throughout the whole reproductive stages, right? We need to be able to first do cost-effective program. We don't have bottomless pit of money. We need to then see. What is it? Do a national registry, make sure what is our problem, identify it, and then roll out policies which is cost effective, reassess whether that's cost effective enough to actually, address the population issues, right? And also the fertility issue, of course.
Thank you so much again, Dr. Natasha I. Muhammad Noor. Obviously, your insights are very fruitful, and hopefully to our audience, you're able to take some of those perspectives and apply it in your daily. Now, don't go anywhere. We'll be back with our second segment. Welcome back, everybody. Now, something's really off with politics. Right now, we're switching gears to something Malaysians have arguably spent more time talking about, obviously, in this particular area. And one of the conversations that we have been seeing gaining traction is this apparent gap between DAP on how it sees itself versus how segments of the public perceive the party. Now, this obviously stems from a wider debate around DAP's role within the unity government, balancing its traditional reformist identity and principles with the realities of being part of a super coalition where compromise is unavoidable.
Yeah, and for decades, some people view DAP as a party that's mainly look after Chinese interests. But they have tried to change that image, right? And we've seen that they're trying by fielding more Malay candidates, they're recruiting more Malay members, and then talking more about national issues rather than ethnic issues, trying to brand themselves as a multiracial party, basically. But however, outside its core supporters, there are also segments of the public who question whether certain positions taken by the party are 100% purely based on principles, and whether they're also shaped by political considerations within the broader political landscape. But from DAP's perspective, they're thinking that they would argue that they have remained consistent about it. They remain consistent in championing principles such as, fighting corruption, institutional reform, governance, and the rule of law.
I mean, the party obviously at various points, right, found itself involved in a lot of debates, one of it in terms of against corruption, but another that draw a lot of attention, obviously, when it comes to the constitutional issues, right, of the role of institutions, including controversies that we see in Selangor. I mean, I don't have to mention, right, but we know some of it. And the episodes, obviously, have contributed to actually wider discussions about the balance between expression, reform advocacy, and the respect for the Malaysia constitution itself, the framework itself.
Yeah, and as you know, in Malaysia's diverse political environment, constitutional debates often carry broader sensitivities. And then a position that one group views as defending principles such as accountability and democratic space may be interpreted differently by another group depending on their expectations of governance, institutions, and political representation.
Right.
So we have someone on the set to help us delve and understand better into this. Joining us is political analyst, Dr. O. Asen, who will definitely help us separate between political reality from political perception. But Dr. O, so what's your take? Did we get that right? Or maybe do you think that we are oversimplifying things?
Well, I think the DAP certainly over the last decade or so try super hard and perhaps overly hard to try to overcome this perception of itself as primarily a party which defends Chinese interests. It wants to be a very multiracial party defending the progressive interests of Malaysians. But I think the reality is such that this country is still very much very, shall we say, communally. I try to avoid the term racially, so I would say communally divided country. There was a point in this country when people were really looking forward to very progressive ideas of how to improve the lot of the people as a whole, right? But of course, I think over times, well, I get a little bit racial. I think the Malay left has sort of dwindled, because at one point, even DAP, they have a lot of Malay members and so on in the 60s and 70s. But over time, I think the idea of all these social democratic ideals and so on among the Malays have sort of dwindled, and therefore primarily For Malays, it's race and religion, which is of supreme importance. But for the non-Malays, and I would include perhaps Indians and to a lesser extent the natives of Sabah and Sarawak, where I'm from, Sabah, well, this sort of looking forward to a more equitable society, a more progressive society, it still lives on. And that's why DAP, for the longest period of time, found its most steady supporter among them. Huh?
It's very interesting that you highlighted this because, of course, we're saying this not basically we're just plucking it out of thin air, right? Because we saw the performance. We saw the performance in Sabah. We saw the performance even in Johor. They lost their seats, and now MCA has more seats than them.
That's right.
Right? Because the idea that you just mentioned about people are now looking at a progressive approach and not necessarily falling back to the rhetorics that we are fighting against,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which what made the Malay left went to DAP in
Yeah.
the first place. So this debate, the internal perception that DAP has versus the public perception towards them, not just about their supporters, right? The people who are just maybe atas pagar here, right? On the fence, looking in. How would they survive? What are some of the ground observations in terms of their messaging, their campaign rhetorics, and of course, whatever happened in Skudai with one of their Malay candidate having to opt out from contesting even.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Johor election would reflect this sort of DAP's sort of reckoning, much more than Sabah, even though they score like 0 in Sabah. That's because they're associated too closely with the power that be in Sabah, which well, their core supporters did not like, I shall put it this way. In Johor, I think it's more like a sort of what they call a slap on the wrist, a very heavy slap at that, maybe a slap on the face as well.
More like a slap on the face.
From the what I would call erstwhile core supporters, the non-Malays who typically were looking forward to more reforms and so on. And when DAP was in opposition, DAP had a lot of promises. We are going to bring about a lot of reforms, not only anti-corruptions, but also a more equitable society. But when they did come to power, as we all discussed, political reality set in. It's very difficult to navigate shall we say, the bureaucratic ocean.
Right.
Even though if you are already minister or deputy minister, a lot of this, what you thought are reform policies, could not be pushed through. And your core supporters punish you accordingly. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and we
why-
saw that in, I mean, for the Johor one, we saw that in,
Yep.
in Tangkak, Jementat, and Johor Jaya, right, which they lost their seat and effectively gave it over to MCA lah.
Yeah, of course, there's also the splinter factor. I mean, the Bersamas
Correct.
sort of split their
Berbeza.
votes a little bit, not a lot. Yeah.
But now, what do you think now? Because they have been part of the government for quite a while. They're no longer the opposition. But do you feel like there is still a gap in terms of their internal narrative?
Well, yeah. Well, number one, the gap between what they sort of champion and promise when they were in opposition and what they can realistically deliver when they are in government. That's one gap. So that is perceived by their core supporters, right? And the core supporters are warning them by giving them the Johor results, rather dismal ones. And then internally, I think within DAP, there are also debates. The more Chinese-oriented faction of the party versus the more, shall we say, English-speaking faction of the party. They are also having some sort of soul searching, right? The English-speaking ones, of course, they are well, they are more embracing of all this crossing the racial divides, and so on. Which the Chinese-speaking ones, I mean, within the party, the elites, both sets of elites, they are okay with that. Just that they feel that DAP became too accommodative to some of those. How should I put it? To some of those old guards in the power structure of Malaysia, and therefore they lose their kind of determination to try to get rid of those things which they promised to get rid, such as the quota systems and so on. Yeah.
And even the issue of UEC, the issue of UEC, it's not now being taken over by another
Yeah.
party. It's like,
Yep.
it's something that a lot of people were vying for, that the AP were able to, hold up the torch for, right?
Yeah, but it
So,
seems like they're losing their fight.
yeah.
Well, the UEC issue actually has been overtaken by events. Huh? I happen to be a UEC graduate, but when I was young, whether the government recognizes UEC or not was really a big deal, right? By now, even without the government recognizing it, we still do quite okay.
Yeah.
We either study overseas or we go to the private institutions of higher learning, right? So it's really not a big deal as before. So if I were DAP, I would try to perhaps put more emphasis on some other issues. So this anti-corruption, separation of public prosecutor,
And
attorney
AG,
general, and
yeah,
all this. Yeah.
We talked about this gap, right? The internal narrative that DAP is still holding on to, and then it's like they want to ensure the public at large that this is who they are, and we saw that, at least in somewhat, because I don't think it's an isolated case somewhat, in Malacca, because with the protests that took place, right? It's all about integrity, but then again, to what extent would that have the ripple effects then, that state level, would that sort of integrity or protest ripple to
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
I have sort of not so kindly characterizing that as grasping at straws because of their dismal results in Sabah, in Johor, and so on. So now they try to sort of project once again an image of being a fighter for defending this and that rights, championing reforms and
Democracy.
so on.
Yeah.
And this they will portray as appointing assembly persons is undemocratic and so on.
Yeah.
But actually, even in Sabah, which has a long tradition of doing so, there was a DAP appointed assemblyman after 2018, right?
There's not been a problem with that.
That's right. So I'm not sure. I think they are bucking up the wrong tree. And if they come out clean and say we want to have separate waves with UMNO, okay? We just want to run our own campaign and maybe even run against UMNO.
No.
I think people resonate more, This sort of wishy-washy type of
Approaches,
finding an
yeah.
issue and then
Yeah.
But then again, like, how would that affect the stability within the unity government itself? Because the current unity government is a super coalition,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So
Well, the unity government at the federal level, since day one, was a political marriage of convenience, right?
Right.
We talk about fertilities and so on.
Early on, yes.
Yeah, it's a marriage of convenience. Sometimes it can get very fertile, but not always. Sometimes you get estrangement. Sometimes you get divorce, right? I mean, UMNO is flirting with, PAS, right? So, DAP, it's also throwing its tantrums against UMNO and so on. It's normal. I mean, I think all these coalitions, all these parties, they will go their separate ways before their next general elections, slug it out, and then win as many seats as possible. And then you try to renegotiate an arranged marriage again of convenience.
yeah, that's true. No, because again, it's the dance that people expect, right?
Yeah.
But would you actually, to the extent, say that it's actually a healthy way of having to voice out or at least preserve your identity by having to voice this out before a big election, and then later on, maybe, when we find it convenient, then we can work together for the benefit of the people. But a lot of people are very fatigued about it,
Yeah. Especially this sort of one state election after another. After Negeri Sembilan, you still have Malacca to go, not to forget Sarawak. So, you need to have perhaps a slightly more convincing appeal nowadays. It's not enough just to say the other side is very bad, I'm quite good. Because people saw that the other side might still be very bad, but you are not as good as you portray yourself to be. So I think over the next year or so, as we go into general election, not only DAP, by the way,
Yeah.
PKR also the one seat in Johor, one seat in Sabah, and this is the party of the Prime Minister of the day, right? So Pakatan Harapan as a whole, they really need to do some soul searching. Yeah.
So now, Dr. O, since we are on that matter, right? Despite all the efforts to expand its Malay base, they continue to face challenges after challenges among some of the Malay voters. So what do you think that they need to do differently, though? To overcome this perception?
Well, I think some of their YBs, whether MPs or assemblymen or women, they are doing quite a good job of trying to solve problems for the average, I think, Malaysians across racial lines, right? And don't get too ambitious to try to go into the more rural constituents, right? Focus on the more urban constituents. Number one, these are the more educated lot, to put it mildly. Number two, they face very similar problems, right? They face traffic jams, they face, pollution, they face bureaucracy and so on. And if you as a party, nowadays, actually, people sort of look beyond party affiliations. If they perceive a certain YB as being able to solve, the particular, pet problems in their tamans and so on, then they are more likely to vote for that YB. So I think gone are the days when DAP put up, let's say, fresh graduate, fresh face, very handsome or very pretty candidate, and he or she would win with 20,000 votes. I think those days are sort of over.
But it's not about the charm of the young candidates anymore.
That's
it's about
right.
you fulfilling your promises that
And also because Ihsan, you mentioned something about very interesting, because now we're already splintered.
Yeah.
Back then, there's no Bersama, there's no Muda. DAP was the alternative, was the unscripted sort of option.
Now there's
there,
more
right?
alternatives.
Correct.
Bersama, warisan. Wawasan.
Wawasan.
Sorry.
See, you got confused with all these acronyms, isn't it? So what you don't want to have is for people to perceive you as the party of yesteryears or yesterdays, right? And if you're not careful, you could indeed become, if you don't rejuvenate yourselves, granted, you cannot have old and tired faces, but you also cannot have these fresh graduates, sort of flushing the party. You should have people who are in their, let's say, 30s to 40s. They have proven themselves as professionals, and then they really serve their constituents. And people across racial lines will vote for you. You look at how, let's say, some of the DAP YBs, PKR YBs in the KL, greater KL areas, for example, people would praise them quite well because they have good service.
But we also know that the party itself postponed its national congress, right, from July to August, July 12th to August 16th. Do you think that, in a way, kind of not added to the issue, but was one of the factors that allowed this internal divisiveness to fester and to brew and to grow, because they said they want to do away with the state elections first before tending to it. Is this actually an oversight?
I think so. Well, number one, that happens to be my birthday, the 16th of August. So I'm going to look forward to that. Number two, I think they should have done this before going into Johor.
So people have an idea.
Because let's say during that convention, you decided that you're going to pull out of the coalition, right? Then what for going into Johor, going to Negeri Sembilan together with PKR, right? Might as well go for it yourself. Now it's very strange. You already pakat with PKR together and going into that election. I mean, you remain in PH, and then suddenly now you say you pull out of PH. So it's almost a foregone conclusion that you're not going to pull out of PH. So then why have that convention in the first place?
But then again, people are saying that, like, what would an open sort of Congress do? What sort of message do they want to see? Have you had heard anything on the ground that they want to see? What's the identity or the direction that they want to see
Well, I
from
think
DAP?
those who are in power in the party, of course, would like to see a convention which, in a sense, well, I wouldn't say rubber stamp, but reaffirm, right, the grassroots support for remaining in PH. But within the grassroots, I think primarily the Chinese-speaking grassroots of DAP, we are very used to be opposition. There's nothing wrong with us going back to being opposition, and we can perhaps win more seats by being in the opposition. Yeah.
But how much room do you think that they actually have to express their disagreements with the unity government?
Just like during UMNO assembly, you can speak your mind, right? I think similarly in the DAP convention, I hope this is given to them. I don't think there will be muscle too much on it.
I mean, back to the Malacca situation. What they did, like you said, it wasn't something so major for them to be really protesting about that. Because if we use Malacca protests as an example, right, do you think that DAP has enough space to publicly express their disagreements while remaining within the unity? Or maybe is there a limit to how it, how far it can go?
Since you mentioned that, I think the dissatisfaction with DAP actually started, let's say, around 2022, during the start of the Ismail Sabri administration, when at the instigation of DAP and Anwar sort of tag along and so on, they as the opposition of the day and PH went and supported Ismail Sabri's government. They say, oh, we need a stable government amidst all this pandemic. Therefore, we as opposition will give them so-called confidence and supply. Still opposition, but we support its government. That is allowed and widely practiced in the Westminster system, even the United Kingdom and so on.
Right.
But it's something which your grassroots rank and file supporters could not understand, right? And I think it started from there. This kind of confusion among its supporters sort of fester, as the term you use, saying, are we opposition? Are we government? We are government, but we cannot do things. We might as well go back to being opposition and so on. So this sort of resentment, unsatisfactions, I think, sort of fester in the party, and by extension among its traditional core supporters. What are you now, DAP? You say you're part of government, but simple thing cannot do. Not quite opposition also. So yeah.
That is a very tough area to kind of be in also, right? Tough spot to be in, and also having to muddle out through.
Yes, exactly.
So I mean, if they were to firefight now, they need to get back these core supporters. Reaching out, that's something maybe in the future.
And perhaps tone down a little bit in terms of all the political rhetorics that actually makes your own the personalities in your party to be like the scapegoat of another party's campaign, right?
Oh, you mean like ngak-koming
Because
lah.
we were,
And
Since we are in the season of state elections, Johor is done upcoming, is Negeri Sembilan, and we will have Malacca. And from Johor itself, we can see that the political rhetorics doesn't work anymore because the people on the ground just want to know what can you deliver for us.
Yeah.
We're not
And then we
talk-
saw,
yeah,
especially
we're not
in
talking
the
about national
results.
issues, but something that's really happening on the ground. So, with DAP, perhaps they could, like you said, tone down on that and focus more on what can you do for your people.
But there has to be an alternative also. You see, in Johor, for example, there was an alternative. I mean, if you don't support DAP, you feel safe supporting BN because you look at this gentleman on Hafiz, the MB and so on, young, dashing, very confident, effective in doing his job, pulling in a lot of foreign investments. People say I can support such a person even though he's from BN, right? Similarly, in Sabah, the DAP supporters, they voted for Warisan because they thought Shafi Abdul to come back as the state government. It didn't come to be, but I mean, that's what they thought. So, similarly, in Negeri Sembilan or in Malacca, if in their mind there's for lack of a better word, replacement for DAP, then they could vote for that party or that coalition or that leaders gang lah. But frankly speaking, you just don't see that in either Malacca or in Negeri Sembilan.
It's a completely different script nanti.
Oh, so you're
Yeah.
saying that perhaps the retention would still be there lah, at least for DAP. There's no, I mean, for
there's
the
no
time being lah.
viable
Okay,
alternative,
okay.
right? Yeah, you there's no on Hafiz in either Malacca or
Yeah.
Negeri Sembilan. And Negeri Sembilan is a mess in terms
Right,
of
right
its
now. It's true.
internal power struggle. Yeah.
But I mean, since we're talking about state levels here already, right? Because very good example when it comes to Johor, especially with the win. Not necessarily a landslide victory, but in a way, it is.
It is, yeah,
Because 48 seats, okay. But moving on to the performance on the other divide, right? BN's performance, obviously. Do you see it as a comeback, or is there any more distinctive indicator to say that yes, there's going to be another blue wave, at least for the southern parts of the peninsula?
Well, I think in Johor it certainly was one, but as I said, I think on Hafiz it's a very important factor. The voters of Johor have confidence on him. Frankly speaking, the MB of Negeri Sembilan must be some very fine gentleman. I am not sure he or she would, elicit the same kind of confidence such that, let's say, DAP voters say we can go all in.
The devotion towards the state, punya
Yeah.
governance, you don't see it being trickled to the other
You also
parts,
don't
right?
see a lot of investment pouring into Negeri Sembilan or Malacca and so on. Yeah.
Malacca is quite a bit upsetting a little bit because Malacca is so much opportunity there. It's already like a treasure trove of like a lot of things, culture, heritage, even ongoing investment. But Johor has a lot more, especially in the past few years that we've seen. Yeah, I mean, because we've come to the end of the show, but we want to I want to emphasize that question about what sort of inclinations do you see, or at least factor that says BN is actually going to pull another big win, at least in Malacca.
I think BN, it's been realistic in both Malacca and Negeri Sembilan. If they could win, let's say, a few more seats than what they had from
Before.
the previous state election, it would be quite amazing already. In Negeri, for example, I think they barely scraped by to form a majority. If they can win 2 or 3 more seats, that's quite good already. Yeah.
No major, basically majority in that sense, but like just a little bit of push.
Yeah.
je lah.
For sure, BN won't be able to use the same strategy as they did in Johor, in Malacca, because Johor, they have very strong figures like on Hafiz to sort of retain that
That's
support.
right.
He's the anchor. He's the anchor. He's basically the anchor for UMNO in Nila. But in Negeri Sembilan, it's going to be an entirely different thing. They can't be using the same narrative, I think.
But going back to the Pakatan Harapan, basically coalition here, you've got your poster child in Negeri Sembilan.
Negeri Sembilan is Anthony's election to lose, so-called, because if DAP were to score lower than what it did internally in the party, I think good luck to Anthony.
they're
There will be
doomed.
call for him to.
That's your perhaps activity for your birthday on August 16 then, right? Like how they're going to reshuffle
That's right.
things.
I think all eyes will be on Anthony actually
Okay.
for Negeri Sembilan.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Oesan, for your insights thus far from party politics to state level sort of dynamics and how that will probably affect, the coalitions that we go moving ahead towards GE60.
So for your information, the Negeri Sembilan polls, the nomination will start this Saturday. That's tomorrow, July 18th. And then the voting day will be on August 1st.
To our audience, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to also turn on the notification bell if you haven't already. You'll not only get NSC Beyond the Headlines update, other NSC Online news reports will be delivered to you. Once again, follow us on our socials. We are everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, as well as TikTok. I'm Amaina Kamal.
And I'm Juliana Jalaluddin. Thank you so much for watching.
See
Take
you
care.
guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.